Nearly half a century after the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, images from that day retain their haunting power. Back then, our chief Washington correspondent, Bob Schieffer, was a young newspaper reporter.
Tomorrow night, he hosts 48 Hours Presents As It Happened, John F. Kennedy, 50 years. Bob is at Dealey Plaza in Dallas this morning. Before we talk with him, here's a preview of the special.
Lee Harvey Oswald was on the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository when he shot the president. He had a bird's eye view. If you go and look out that window where he was, you realize you didn't have to be a very good shot.
A policeman hit me.
We knew that Oswald was the most hated suspect of the 20th century.
Chief, do you have any concern for the safety of your prisoner in view of the high feeling among the people of Dallas over the assassination of the president?
No, but necessary precautions will be taken, of course.
We are now switching to Dallas, where they are about to move Lee Oswald and where there's a scuffle in the police station.
Shot Lee Oswald. We're going to switch now to Bob Huffacker down in the basement of the courthouse, who is close to the scene. Go ahead, Bob.
Lee Harold Oswald has been shot. The situation is now that Lee Harold Oswald has been shot. The man who saw the shot fired said it was fired by a man wearing a black hat, a brown coat, a man that...
I had looked and seen Oswald grimace, grasp his stomach, and fall. And I knew that what we had feared had actually taken place.
We got our tape. We have re-racked the videotape that shows that whole scene of confusion.
Suddenly, these two detectives walk out with Oswald between them, and someone just walks up and sticks a gun in Oswald's side and shoots him.
This is the basement floor of the Dallas City Hall, and that's a scuffle on the basement floor, it seems to me.
And again, it was just this total, what in the world has happened? How could this have happened?
Here comes Oswald. He is ashen and unconscious at this
And now the ambulance is coming out. The ambulance with Lee Harvey Oswald, who was shot.
He was taken to Parkland Hospital and died an hour and 15 minutes after he was shot in an emergency room just 10 feet from the room where President Kennedy had died almost exactly 48 hours before.
That weekend was unlike anything that had ever happened in television or in journalism. I never felt the way that I felt that day until 9/11.
Bob Schieffer, good morning. There is much to be said about this and lots of memories, but how did this change you?
You know, I think people always said, did it help your career? Not particularly. I was a newspaper reporter in those days. I later went to Vietnam, and I guess that was the turning point in my career and led me to television. But what changed for me was the impact it just had on me personally, and I think it happened to many Americans. It was such a surreal time, and it was so difficult, to go through that period. Then I think for me, it just gave me a new appreciation for the frailty of life and the preciousness of life. And from that time on, I always tried to just cram as much as I could into every single day. I still think about those days. It was really a time that America lost its innocence. It changed us in so many ways. I'll never, ever forget it.
Bob, on the day that President Kennedy was killed, you were a reporter at the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. You've told us the story before. You picked up the phone, and it was Lee Harvey Oswald's mother asking for a ride, and you ended up driving her to the police station. You were there. It is the most incredible story. What's the lesson from that story, do you think?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess the lesson for a reporter is when the phone rings, answer it. I was on the city desk, and it was just total bedlam. And when I picked the phone up and a woman said, can you give me a ride to Dallas? And I said, well, lady, we don't run a taxi here. And besides, the president's been shot. And she said, yes, I heard on the radio. I think my son is the one that they've arrested. So I wrote down the address and went to get her and brought her over here. But the whole thing, Nora, it was just, up until that point, we were a very confident country. We believed in our leaders, we believed in our institutions, but then when this thing happened, it changed the country. We were never quite the same after that. The next 10 years would be just a series of violent events: Vietnam, Watergate, more assassinations. It had a profound effect on the country. I'm not sure that we're ever quite over it, because this country was never quite the same after that.
Well said.
Yeah, and Bob, you're in Dealey Plaza this morning, and I know you're going to do Face the Nation from there this Sunday. Who are you going to have on the show?
Well, among others, we're going to have Lucy Baines Johnson Turpin, who is LBJ's daughter. She was a 16-year-old high school student at National Cathedral School in Washington that day. She had quite an experience, and she never had really talked about it very much, and she has quite a story to tell. We'll talk to her. We're also going to talk to a couple of the reporters who covered this story with me, and we'll talk to some of the doctors who were in the emergency room, both when President Kennedy was brought to Parkland Hospital and later when Oswald was brought there.
All right, Bob Schieffer will be watching. Thank you. And you can also watch 48 Hours tonight as it presents As It Happened, John F. Kennedy 50 Years, and I should say that's tomorrow night at 9, 8 Central here on CBS.